Today we're diving into a powerful leadership book that draws wisdom from one of history's greatest leaders, Abraham Lincoln. It's Lincoln on Leadership, Executive Strategies for Tough Times, by Donald T. Phillips. Whether managing a small team or leading a massive organization, this book offers timeless lessons. Let's explore how Lincoln's strategies can help you navigate tough times, build strong alliances, and lead with character. Let's kick things off with something that might seem basic, but it's fundamental to connecting with people. According to Lincoln on Leadership, one of the first things Lincoln did as a leader was to go and get familiar with the troops. Whether it was meeting soldiers on the battlefield or talking with everyday citizens, Lincoln believed in direct, personal engagement. He spent time out in the field, getting to know people face to face. Phillips reminds us that leadership isn't just about giving orders from an office, it's about walking the floor, being visible, and making sure your team knows that you're invested in their success. Lincoln understood this instinctively. One of the key points Phillips emphasizes is that Lincoln was kind but firm. He showed genuine care for his people, but he also maintained authority and set clear expectations. Think about how this applies in today's workplace. Your team needs to know you care about them, but they also need to see you as a strong leader. That balance of compassion and strength is something Lincoln mastered. And here's the thing, Lincoln didn't micromanage. He empowered his subordinates to get the information he needed. Phillips explains that Lincoln would send people out to gather information and then use that intel to make informed decisions. He trusted his team to do their jobs well, and in return, they trusted him. This brings us to another critical aspect of Lincoln's leadership. He believed in building strong alliances. Phillips notes that Lincoln understood human nature deeply. He knew that to lead effectively, he had to be compassionate, empathetic, and genuinely caring. This is a lesson we can all apply today. Whether you're leading a company, a department, or a small team, the strength of your alliances will often determine your success. It's not enough to just lead. You need to connect. You need to understand your people on a human level and inspire them to work together toward a common goal. But let's not forget one of Lincoln's most effective strategies: persuade rather than coerce. Phillips describes how Lincoln nurtured and guided his team members. Instead of using force or issuing orders, Lincoln built rapport and convinced people to compromise. He sought the consent of his followers, encouraging them to act on their initiative. This not only boosted morale but also fostered a sense of ownership among his team. Think about how you can apply this in your leadership style. Instead of always issuing direct orders, what if you asked more questions? What if you suggested solutions and allowed your team to find their path to success? Now let's focus on one of the most important aspects of leadership: character. Nowadays we hear the words honesty and integrity thrown around a lot in leadership talks, but Lincoln didn't just preach these values, he lived by them. For him, character wasn't just about image, it was the very foundation of his leadership. Phillips starts by highlighting one of Lincoln's core beliefs: honesty and integrity are the best policy. It sounds simple, right? But in times of crisis, it can be tempting for leaders to bend the truth or take shortcuts. Not Lincoln. He gave his subordinates fair chances and equal opportunities for success, and that built trust. His commitment to fairness was unwavering. Lincoln was the type of leader who, when he made it to the top, reached behind to pull others up with him. Phillips tells us that he never lost sight of his people. He set clear goals and stood with them when they were right. And here's the key: he never lost their respect. Lincoln's humility was another cornerstone of his character. Phillips explains that Lincoln wasn't someone who acted out of vengeance or spite. He took the time to clarify misunderstandings, even with his fiercest critics, and always kept a level head. Imagine being in a leadership position during a time of intense pressure, like Lincoln was during the Civil War. It would have been easy to lash out or make decisions based on emotion. But Lincoln showed restraint. Phillips emphasizes that Lincoln was patient. Lincoln's patience paid off. His ability to handle criticism and avoid knee-jerk reactions earned him respect. One of the lessons Phillips shares is, time is everything. Act quickly when necessary, but also know when to take your time. This balance between decisiveness and patience is a hallmark of great leaders. Let's talk about something every leader faces at some point: criticism. Lincoln faced harsh and sometimes unjust criticism, but as Phillips points out, he dared to handle it. He didn't let attacks consume him. Instead, he chose his battles wisely, fighting back only when it truly mattered. This is such a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best response to criticism is no response at all. Lincoln ignored personal attacks and stayed focused on what was important. Phillips shares that Lincoln only pushed back when the issue was significant enough to impact the larger cause. Lincoln's character wasn't just about making the right decisions, it was about being the kind of leader people wanted to follow. And that's a timeless lesson. If you're finding these insights helpful, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more leadership lessons. Next, we'll explore how Lincoln took decisive action and empowered others to lead. In Lincoln on Leadership, Phillips dives into a core aspect of effective leadership: decisive action. But what sets Lincoln apart from so many other leaders is that he combined decisiveness with empowerment. He didn't just make decisions, he enabled others to take ownership and lead as well. Let's break this down. Phillips begins by emphasizing that Lincoln knew when to exercise a strong hand. He understood that in times of crisis, hesitation can be fatal. Leaders need to be decisive, but this doesn't mean rushing in without thinking. For Lincoln, it was about carefully considering the facts, exploring different solutions, and then making a firm decision once all the information was on the table. During the Civil War, Lincoln faced enormous pressure to act quickly. Lives were literally on the line, but he didn't let that pressure force him into rash decisions. One of the key lessons here is that being decisive doesn't mean being impulsive. Lincoln knew how to balance the need for quick action with the wisdom of thoughtful consideration. Phillips shares that Lincoln would often consult his advisors, listen to differing viewpoints, and then make the final call. In other words, he never gave up his points of strength or responsibility. Now here's where Lincoln shined. He didn't just lead by making decisions himself, he empowered others to lead. Phillips explains that Lincoln was all about enabling his subordinates to take initiative. He didn't feel threatened by their success, and he wasn't afraid to delegate. Lincoln believed in what Phillips calls leading by being led. He let his people solve problems on their own, but he was always there to guide the dialogue and step in if necessary. This is such a powerful lesson for modern leaders. Empower your team to make decisions, but provide the safety net they need to grow. According to Phillips, Lincoln always gave credit to his subordinates when they succeeded and took the blame when things went wrong. He stood by his team in tough times and made sure they felt appreciated when things went well. This idea of giving credit and taking responsibility is a rare trait in leadership, but it's one that builds tremendous loyalty and respect. When your team knows you'll stand by them during failures and give them glory during successes, they'll go above and beyond for you. They feel trusted, valued, and safe to take risks. One of the most powerful examples in the book is Lincoln's relationship with General Ulysses Grant. Phillips describes how Lincoln spent years searching for a general who had the strength and courage to lead the Union Army to victory. When he found Grant, Lincoln didn't micromanage him. Instead, he empowered Grant to make his own decisions and lead the way he saw fit. Lincoln had the wisdom to recognize Grant's talent and gave him the space to do what he did best. But Lincoln also knew when to step in and provide guidance, keeping a careful eye on the overall direction of the war. Phillips writes that Lincoln didn't hesitate to remove poor leaders, but he fully supported those who demonstrated strength and vision. This is a great example of how empowerment doesn't mean hands-off leadership. It means guiding your team while trusting their abilities. Now let's talk about goals. Phillips explains that Lincoln was extremely results-oriented. He didn't just give vague directions, he set specific, actionable goals for his team. He united them with a clear mission and focused on short-term objectives that could be achieved right away. This created momentum and kept his team motivated. Lincoln knew that progress didn't happen overnight. He set small, achievable goals that kept his team moving forward. Phillips reminds us of Lincoln's famous quote, "Leave nothing for tomorrow that can be done today." It's a powerful reminder for all of us to focus on getting things done and keeping momentum alive. Now we'll explore how Lincoln used communication and storytelling to inspire and lead. Phillips introduces us to one of Lincoln's greatest strengths: communication. Lincoln wasn't just a great speaker, he was a master storyteller and a visionary. He knew how to communicate his ideas in a way that inspired people and brought them together, even in the most divided times. Let's dive into how Lincoln used communication and vision to lead a nation through one of the toughest periods in its history. First and foremost, Lincoln understood that to be an effective leader, you must master the art of public speaking. Phillips emphasizes that Lincoln wasn't just naturally gifted at speaking, he worked at it. He practiced, prepared, and continually refined his speaking skills. Whether it was an impromptu speech or a carefully crafted address, Lincoln was always ready. For Lincoln, communication wasn't just about talking, it was about connecting with his audience. He used simple, familiar language that everyone could understand. And this is key. Lincoln spoke to people in a way that resonated with them. He avoided long, complicated explanations, choosing instead to tell stories or use humor to make his point. Phillips highlights that Lincoln's ability to speak in simple and familiar language was one of the reasons he was able to connect with so many people, from soldiers in the field to politicians in Washington. Lincoln's greatest strength as a communicator was his storytelling. Phillips notes that Lincoln didn't just share facts, he told vivid stories that made complex ideas easier to understand and remember. Think about it. How often do we remember statistics or facts from a speech? Not often, right? But we do remember stories. Lincoln knew this, and he used storytelling to convey his ideas powerfully. Whether he was persuading a political rival or rallying troops, he often used humor and relatable stories to drive his point home. A key aspect of Lincoln's communication was his ability to preach and reaffirm his vision. Phillips explains that Lincoln wasn't just reacting to events, he had a clear vision and was relentless in communicating it. Lincoln didn't just state his vision once, he repeated and reaffirmed it, reminding people why they were fighting and what the future could look like if they succeeded. One of the most famous examples Phillips shares in the book is Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. It was just 272 words long, but those words carried incredible weight. In that brief speech, Lincoln linked the sacrifices of the past with the promise of the future, framing the Civil War as a fight not just for the Union, but for the principles of liberty and equality. Phillips emphasizes that Lincoln's speech was powerful because of its clarity and inspiration. He spoke directly to the heart of the matter, reaffirming America's vision. Great leaders communicate by keeping it clear, concise, and meaningful. An often overlooked aspect of Lincoln's communication was the importance of listening. Phillips notes that Lincoln knew when to be silent and listen before speaking. Great communication isn't just about what you say, it's about listening. Lincoln's ability to listen and inspire is a lesson for all leaders. Now we will explore a crucial aspect of effective leadership, leading through innovation and adversity. During times of crisis, some leaders buckle under pressure, while others rise to the challenge. Lincoln was one of those rare leaders who not only embraced adversity, but used it as an opportunity to innovate. Let's start with innovation. Phillips highlights that Lincoln was not afraid to try new things. He encouraged his team to innovate, to take risks, and to come up with solutions that went beyond the traditional. Lincoln understood that if you never try, you never succeed, and he fostered a culture where innovation was not just accepted, it was expected. Lincoln embraced innovation to tackle challenges during the Civil War. Phillips notes that he saw failure as a step to success, and encouraged his subordinates to take initiative and learn from mistakes. Leaders today can learn from Lincoln by fostering environments where innovation thrives, creativity is valued, and failure is a learning opportunity. One of the ways Lincoln led through innovation was by embracing new technology. During the Civil War, he was one of the first leaders to adopt the use of the telegraph as a tool for real-time communication. This allowed him to stay connected with his generals on the battlefield and make faster, more informed decisions. Phillips explains that Lincoln wasn't afraid of technology, he saw it as a way to gain a strategic advantage. Today's leaders face a similar challenge: how to leverage new technology to enhance team collaboration and decision-making. Phillips makes it clear, don't be afraid to embrace new tools and innovations. Whether it's new software, automation, or even artificial intelligence, the best leaders are those who stay ahead of the curve and make these technologies available to their teams. Leading through adversity is perhaps the most defining test of any leader. Lincoln faced tremendous challenges. His nation was divided, the war was claiming countless lives, and public opinion was constantly shifting. Yet, Phillips shows us that Lincoln led with courage and never let adversity shake his resolve. Phillips shares an interesting example of how Lincoln handled adversity, specifically criticism. Throughout his presidency, Lincoln faced a barrage of criticism from political opponents, the media, and even his supporters. But rather than react emotionally or defensively, Lincoln often ignored personal attacks and focused on the greater mission. Phillips writes that Lincoln only responded to criticism when it was essential to the mission. He didn't waste time on petty attacks or distractions. Instead, he focused on what mattered, keeping the nation united and winning the war. This is a valuable lesson for modern leaders. Know when to engage and when to keep your head down and continue pushing forward. Lincoln understood that leadership wasn't a one-person job. He knew that to lead through adversity and foster innovation, he needed to build a team of strong, capable individuals who were willing to take risks. Modern leaders must build teams that crave responsibility, encourage innovation, and aren't afraid to fail. Lincoln empowered his team to think independently while providing support as needed, ensuring they knew he had their back. Lincoln saw adversity as an opportunity for growth, not just survival. By embracing challenges, he reshaped the nation and led it toward a new future. If you found these insights helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more leadership lessons from the best minds in history. And let me know in the comments, what's one leadership principle from Lincoln that you think could transform your team? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.